kicks the goal. Making something out of nothing.
Malcheski, is that the grand final?
Jimmy Bartell can make a hero of himself.
That is a brilliant snap. He's kicked the goal and Freeman to win it after the siren. What a game of football at the MCG.
Welcome to the Protected Zone, one of the best podcasts on AFL, where we talk about this great game of AFL. In this great episode, we take aim at the idea of no football this weekend.
Bye-bye to the bye. Should it stay or should it go?
Mixed football, it's on for young and old, boys and girls.
We salute some of the big heroes that are leaving the game.
We preview the first round of finals action.
And we give you the song of the week, No More Heroes. I'm Linton Nanam from Padang.
And I'm Eddie J from Sydney. It's September, which can only mean one thing. But what does it mean, Linton? Does it mean spring or something else?
Well. September the 1st is a very holy day here in the Muslim calendar. It's called Eid al-Adha here. But in Arabic it means Eid, and it is commemorate the sacrifice made by Prophet Abraham, and it involves sort of sacrifice and feast. But on the day of September the 1st, animals, in this case cows, were taken to mosques or near the mosques, and they're slaughtered, and a third of the meat giving away to the poor, third to the friends and relatives, and the third for yourself. I like the concept, and we got a lot of meat, and we've been feasting, no doubt. So September means the beginning of Eid holiday, and we're feasting on sacrificed cow.
So meat, and more meat. Well, I was hoping that spring or the beginning of September might mean something else, but I just don't know what it could mean.
Yeah. Is it warming up in Sydney?
Yes, it is warming up, and still we can talk about the weather, but there's something else that's on my mind in September.
Oh, what is it?
Could it be football?
I almost forgot about that. It's a strange weekend. There was hardly any football. It is, well, we shouldn't say that. There are a lot of players around the country playing their, finals. And, of course, we had veterans match and, our All-Star girls match.
Yes, we did. And a few people in the media were prefacing their comments by saying, well, as you know, there's no football this weekend. But on the contrary, there's quite a lot of football on. It's an insult to celebrity footballers and women footballers, and plus all the 615,419 registered AFL players all around Australia. Of course there was football going on.
Yes, I heard that there was a game in St. Petersburg in Russia. No, in Florida. Yes,
there was definitely a game of AFL being played in St. Petersburg. So all this stuff about there being no football. There was a women's game from the AFLW, and it was the Victorian team against the Allies team, which is pretty much the rest of Australia. And Victoria showed how good they are. They won by 97 points.
Yes, that was a romp, wasn't it? I watched the half of the game, and I was impressed by their skills. I often say that I don't like the segregation of, games, women's football and men's games. Why don't they just mix up?
I think that would be a good idea, and that's one thing that we can explore a bit later on in the program. But in the Victorian team, they had some very good players. Daisy Pearce, she's fantastic, and Moana Hope, she was excellent goal kicker. So yeah, there was a lot of football being played on the weekend, and also it just wasn't at the AFL level, but there were amateurs, celebrities, St. Petersburg, so it was all happening. So yes, there was football being played.
Yeah, and also even in Victoria there were few finals played in the Victorian Football League, VFL, or the seconds of AFL teams. Richmond played, Collingwood played, and so there was a lot of action.
Yes, there was. Now, this misnomer of the no football idea, that came up because of the bye, which is being introduced by the AFL. It's the second season of the bye before the finals, and Is it a good idea or is it not a good idea? Some people are saying that the bye before the final should be banned. Is it a case of bye?
Yes, bye. I think it was introduced after the crafty coach Fremantle. After their position was secured, they decided to rest 11 players just before the finals start, and to stop that sort of action happening, I think AFL introduced this bye before the finals. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. It was a bit of reverse tanking that was introduced by Fremantle, and in particular their coach Ross Lyon. A couple of other clubs have tried that in the subsequent years. North Melbourne also tried it a couple of years ago as well, and I think the AFL wanted to introduce some integrity into the final rounds of the season, and yes, they introduced this idea of the bye round before the finals.
Well, some commentators say that it reduces the sort of hard-won top four positions, like top four teams not just getting the second chance, but they are given advantage by playing straight on without bye. They argue that this having a bye sort of loses the momentum, and from the spectators' perspective, I think obviously lull before the September starts, sort of stop-start thing. I hate the byes, not just before the finals, but in the middle of the season. I just hate the bye.
Yes, well, the entire season should be a test of stamina, and I don't think there should be any breaks at all. And my preference would be for games to be played every single day. And I know that that's probably not physically possible for players, but instead of having a game each week, maybe a 4-day break in between games, so they could just play throughout the entire season. And if players are too tired at the end, well, it's the survival of the fittest.
Yes, you can have more players, like instead of 40-odd players, each team can have 500s and field an A team, B team, C team, and, that would be fantastic. AFL football every day.
Now, I must point out that the people that were criticising the bye are fairly respectable people within the AFL. There's Mick Malthouse, who coached various teams to 3 AFL premierships, and then there's Alistair Clarkson, the coach of Hawthorn, who's coached his team to 4 premierships. So I don't think we should take their comments lightly. Their argument is that it gives the top 4 teams a disadvantage going into the finals because every single team is as equally rested, and that's unfair for the teams that finish in the top 4.
Yes, I think those two people you mentioned have a credibility to make opinions, and they know what they're talking about, and they should be respected. But more fundamentally, I don't like this idea of the league changing rules and schedules every year, and it should be just stick to the whatever's tradition, sort of 23 rounds, 22 rounds, and then straight into finals in September. Let's just stick to it. It's just no good. People think that there is a room to change everything. Permanent revolutions going on all the time.
So we're agreed that it should be bye.
Bye. Scrap the concept of bye altogether. In the middle of the season, in front of, just before the finals, bye should go. Bye.
Bye bye baby, goodbye baby, bye bye. Bye bye baby, don't make me cry baby, bye bye. You're the one girl in town.
Now, we briefly mentioned the idea of mixed football before. So, of course, we've got the AFL men's competition, and now we've got the AFL women's competition. And what would the mixed football idea be all about, Lin Tang?
Yes, football and many other sports, it's always men and women division or teams. And why can't we have a team that's made up of both sexes? And if it is too hard to have a 50-50, we can start with the sort of at least a quarter. Like a quarter of a team has to be a women or something like that, and it will make a great game. You may remember that I was involved in this Community Cup football in Victoria, and they field a mixed sex team. I think it was like 6 or 8 women in the side, or a bit more, and they worked very well.
And would it be something that replaces AFL or something that replaces AFLW, or is it a completely different league altogether?
Oh, it could be just, we can just call it football for everyone. This sex-based division is a bit discriminatory, isn't it? Our women should be playing with women. Can't they play with the boys? And the boys can play with the girls. Why not?
Well, I'd like to see Daisy Pearce recruited by Carlton or by Collingwood or Moana Hope. She actually plays for Collingwood in the Women's League, but why can't she be a rover or full forward in the men's competition?
Oh, exactly. And Moana Hopes could, be a handy pickup for Collingwood men's side. The team that suffered from the lack of, forward all through the year, be a hope for the Collingwood men's side.
Well, I think that it would be a good idea to have a mixed football team, and we'll forward this idea to AFL management and see what they come up with. So you're listening to The Protected Zone. You can subscribe to us through iTunes, listen to us on SoundCloud or YouTube, and you can even listen to us through our website, theprotectedzone.com. Up next, we look at all the AFL retirements. AFL retirements. There's been quite a few this year, and only about 5% of players make it as far as some of these players have in their careers. Others who retire early, they go back to their jobs as tractor drivers or teachers, or they work in offices, or they shun football forever. Some of them become commentators. So what will become of some of these retired players?
I have no idea. I mean, they're talking about retirement at the age of, 30, or, some players are not even 30. But as you said, this year's retirees are just so many stars. And some people compare this year's retirement as good as 2007, when, a bunch of superstars like Michael Voss, Jimmy Hurd and Nathan Buckley, all those Brownlow medal winners retired, or, premiership captains. And so this year, we've got the, of course, Luke Hodge retiring, but apparently there's a talk of him coming back to play one more year next year, not in Hawthorn, but apparently Gold Coast Suns. They want him to come and play for a year, and then apparently he's offered, a contract to become a coach of some kind.
Well, I did hear about that, but would that be even possible? But now I'm thinking about Luke Hodge and we're talking about him. Before we go on, let's listen to this crazy moment.
Rioli with a couple of first quarter goals. Now he's hugging the pocket here, wanting Hodge to win a one-on-one against Schofield. Puopolo got a high tackle, back to Hodge. That's a goal, I think. It is. Hodge has done it from nowhere. We shouldn't be surprised, should we? He is. Well, it is October.
Wow.
It is Mr. September.
Wasn't that a moment? That's Luke Hodge kicking a goal. It's his famous banana kick in the 2015 AFL Grand Final against West Coast, and he just kicked it out of nowhere. That, for me, summarises Luke Hodge. What about you, Lin Tang?
Well, yeah, he's a very skilled player, but More often than not, he was remembered as on-field general, and no wonder the Gold Coast is interested in him. He gives instructions right, left, and centre. He never stops talking. Especially towards the end of his career, he was, holding the back line together for Hawthorn. And the other characteristics of Luke Hodge is, of course, his sort of embodiment of Hawthorn's unsociable football. Sometimes he got in trouble. He got a few weeks from the tribunals, but he never afraid of, getting into a physical confrontation.
Oh, definitely not. Now, I'd say that he's the Napoleon Bonaparte of the AFL. Known as the General, he led from the back and he led from the front. So, excellent player. We'll be sad to see him go. Nick Riewoldt, he's another great player that's retiring this year. And let's listen to this snippet of Nick Riewoldt.
Into the path of Montagna. They've got men back. Riewoldt in the middle, calling for the football. Schneider, will he give it to Riewoldt? He will. Riewoldt runs in. Touched off the boot. Oh my goodness. Can you believe that? Wonderful chase by Heath Shaw. He came up behind him like a librarian. He never heard him. No surprise, everybody else in the library is shouting. He's got the football.
Yeah, so that was quite a magical moment for Nick Riewoldt. Probably not in the best way that he'd like to be remembered for, but it was the librarian smother. It was the smother of the century. What can you tell us about this one?
Grand final replay, 2010. When the Saints had chance to win the flag for the first time since 1966, and that was a sure goal. Nick Riewoldt was alone. He grabbed the ball and he didn't even bother looking around. And his show from Collingwood just sneaked up on him and bang, smother. Oh, that was just brilliant smother.
Oh, it was an excellent smother. So Nick Riewoldt, he played 335 games for St Kilda. And he was a legend in his own lunchtime. So another great player. It's unfortunate that he didn't receive a premiership medallion, whereas Luke Hodge ended up getting 4. But that's how life is in AFL football. So well done, Nick Riewoldt. Another great player that's retiring is Stevie Johnson from Greater Western Sydney at the moment. But his big claim to fame is playing as a forward for Geelong.
Yes, he's ending up as a GWS, and where there's a certain question marks being talked about whether he's fit, good enough to play in the finals for GWS. But he has been, a great servant for the Geelong Cats. He's hanging up his boots, and his goal sense. Again, he's not afraid of physical confrontation. He was one of the best creative small forwards you would have in the game in the modern time.
Yes, I fully agree there. But before we leave Stephen Johnson, let's play this little snippet of a goal of the year that he received in 2005.
Chance for the leapers. Almost Steve Johnson tried to rake it in. Toe pokes it off the deck. Rolls it towards goal. That is a miracle.
That's it. How could he kick that?
That's the goal of the season.
Now I reckon somewhere in Victoria.
Oh, wasn't that a fantastic goal? It was against Richmond, 2005. He just miraculously scored a goal out of that sequence.
Yes, that was a good one.
Good luck on his career and good luck on the weekend. If he plays, that is. Now, one other player that I think we should have a good look at is Zach Dawson. He's also retiring at the end of this season. Now, Zach Dawson is possibly one of the most unskilled AFL players ever, but he's a reminder of the persistence and the perseverance and the reward that you get from training really, really hard. So Zach Dawson, he ended up playing for 3 different clubs, St Kilda, Hawthorn and Fremantle, and he's been in the game for a long time.
Yes, as you mentioned, you wouldn't see that sort of type of defenders anymore. Just stop opposition full forward scoring. If that's a role of defenders, Zach Dawson was, one of the few remaining species As you said, he was often described as a dour, and he hasn't got any offensive side of game. In these days, you're not good enough unless you have a offensive side. Grab the ball and launch the attack. But he's a pure defender.
Yes, and there's, along with Zach Dawson and a few others, there's a few Brownlow medalists retiring as well. There's Sam Mitchell, Matthew Priddis and Jobe Watson. They're all retiring. 3 Brownlow medalists retiring in the same year.
Yes, do you call Jobe Watson a Brownlow medalist?
Well, he was actually awarded the Brownlow medal in 2012. It was taken away from him a few years later, but as far as I'm concerned, he's still a Brownlow medalist.
Yeah, of course. He's son of Tim, the Essendon legend, and yes, he played a few memorable games. But he would like to go out with a bang, doesn't he? Winning a few finals.
Yes, and we'll see how successful he is on the weekend. And the good thing is that 3 of these Brownlow medalists, they're all playing in the finals next weekend. So we'll see how they turn out. You're listening to The Protected Zone, where you can subscribe to us through iTunes, listen to us on SoundCloud or YouTube, or you can go to our website, theprotectedzone.com. Up next, the finals. Lintang, we talked about what does September mean, and it's obvious. It means finals, and we've got the first week of finals. How exciting is this?
Well, it is exciting in one sense, but I miss the during the regular season those upsets and unpredictable results. Now we've got only 8 teams, and less likely there will be sort of upset. But there's going to be tight games, I think.
I think there will be. Well, let's start off with the first big match, which is on a Thursday night. I know that you don't like the Thursday night time slot, but it's Adelaide playing Greater Western Sydney, and the match is being played in Adelaide. What do you think we'll see in this game?
Well, Adelaide is favourite, isn't it? It's their home ground, and the GWS haven't got much, good record there. And if Adelaide wins this one, they go straight to a preliminary final, and they will have another week off. So 1 week off, then play one game, and then another week off. I think Adelaide could go on, a holiday or something to Bali and come back and win the grand final.
Well, they could do that, but I have noticed that Adelaide have actually lost their past 2 games. Even though they ended up on the top of the ladder, they lost their final 2 games of the season. And Greater Western Sydney, they're not in great form either. They lost their final game of the season as well.
Yes, that was interesting analysis. You think they're sort of both teams a bit out of form. I think Adelaide kind of intentionally lost those 2 games, or slowed down at least, because it is very difficult to keep this intensity going all the time, release the pressure kind of, games. They're the games they could lose, and, just fine-tuning process, I think.
As the cliche goes, the finals is like a new season, so everyone starts off from zero. It's like ground zero once you get to finals, or year zero, I should say. So it's going to be an interesting game. It is being played in Adelaide. Adelaide have got a very strong and tough team. I did say that they haven't been in great form recently, but as you mentioned, they could have been staggering their process for the rest of the season. Greater Western Sydney, they might have been doing the same thing as well, just waiting until the finals start. They were already guaranteed of a top 4 position. Adelaide was already guaranteed of a top 2 position. So why not put the cue in the rack and then wait until the finals start? So I think it's going to be a cracker of a game. I think that Greater Western Sydney might surprise a little bit here.
Oh, you go for a bit of upset?
Yes, I am. So finals always brings up an upset. Greater Western Sydney have only defeated Adelaide once, and that was 2 years ago. And they haven't got a great record against Adelaide, but they've never played in a finals game before. So I think when they play in Adelaide, they might end up having maybe 10 or 15 supporters out of 51,000 that's expected to be there. But I'm suspecting that some weird things are going to happen in this game, and I suspect that Greater Western Sydney might pull off the upset of the year.
Whoa, that's a big call. I'll go for, you may call me a traditionalist, but I'll go for Adelaide. It's their home game, and they've been sort of faultless so far, even though you said, as you mentioned, they lost the last 2 games, home and away season games. But, all the players are in place. And when we talk about Adelaide, we focus on their sort of the strong attack. They're the very attacking kind of team. But in the last round, round 23, when they played against West Coast, you remember Josh Kennedy was held to just 1 goal. And that great defensive work by... I think a defender was called Kyle Hartingham. He did a great job. So GWS has got 2 very good big, tall forward, Jonathan Patton and Jeremy Cameron. But Hartingham could go to one of them and nullify the avenue to score goals for GWS. To me, the surprise for the Adelaide is, I think, defensive game they're going to show in this match.
Well, you've done your best to convince me that Adelaide will win, but I'm still sticking to my prediction of an upset. Greater Western Sydney for me.
Adelaide for me.
Friday Night Lights game. It's Geelong against Richmond being played at the MCG, and it's a rematch of the 1967 Grand Final.
Whoa, I don't remember that one. And who won that game?
That was won by Richmond, and if Richmond are going to win the premiership this year, this is a game that they really need to win.
Well, yeah, both teams need to win this one, and I was looking at the recent records, and Geelong's been on the roll. They haven't lost to Tigers for 13 matches. Since what?
Since 2006.
That's a long time, 10 years. More than 10 years.
It's a long time. Richmond haven't won a premiership since 1980, and they haven't actually won a finals match since 2001. That is such a long time ago. But Geelong, they win finals like we have breakfast every day. So it's a matter of course for them, but Richmond just don't know what's going on there as far as finals are concerned.
So Richmond players have a very little experience in September, while Geelong Cats have got the, appeared in the finals so many times, and I think they've got this current Tigers under sort of measure.
Yes, Geelong did beat Richmond recently. It was about 3 weeks ago, and Richmond was expected to win that game, but they didn't. They only lost by 14 points, and within the big picture, that's not such a huge margin. But maybe they were holding their cards close to their chest, and they were waiting for the finals before revealing their full suite of information. So I think it's going to be a very interesting game. I'm not sure if Richmond will end up upsetting Geelong, but they're very evenly matched teams. Experience doesn't mean absolutely everything in finals, but it does matter a little bit. And mind you, Richmond have got the recent finals experience as well. They were in the finals for 3 consecutive years, not last year though. And the problem for them is that they haven't won a finals match since 2001. And you need that experience of winning a game, not just playing a finals match, but you need that experience of winning a finals game. So I think Geelong have got the edge here.
Yes, I do agree with you. And experience, memories, they play a big part. You know, how to win the game in the finals. And the way the Cats played in the last time they met, I think it was Harry Taylor who was playing forward because the Tomahawk was suspended. And the way he nullified the Alex Rance, the Richmond's biggest weapon, defensive, offensive, modern day defense role model. That was, key for Geelong win. And I think Geelong might, even though in this game Tom Hawkins will be playing, but Harry Taylor may be, placed on Alex Rance again. I think Geelong has got the edge.
I'm going to choose Geelong for this match. The Twilight Zone game, it's Saturday afternoon. It's a 4:20 game and it's Sydney against Essendon. Essendon ended up in 7th position. That's the magical position. And Sydney have won 14 out of the past 16 games and they finished up in 6th position. It's going to be quite an exciting game, I think.
Yes, and I think Essendon coach is sort of looking at the videos of Sydney matches against Hawthorn. Hawthorn has been the only team that beat Sydney twice in that incredible, 3 months, 4 months. Sydney is totally unlosable except for Hawthorn.
Well, the good thing for Sydney is that Hawthorn are not playing in the finals and they're up against Essendon in this game, and the past couple of games have been pretty tight between Sydney and Essendon, except for last year when Essendon pretty much had their seconds team on the field. But they've had quite a few close games over the past 5 or 6 seasons, and I'm predicting that this will be another close game as well. Essendon seem to have a very fast-running game, and they haven't got their experience as far as finals games are concerned, but Sydney, well, they've been in the finals pretty much every year since about 1996. They've only missed the finals on 3 occasions since that season. And it's being played at the Sydney Cricket Ground. They did have a very close tussle about 2 months ago where Sydney won by 1 point with a goal after the siren. Are we likely to see that repeated in this game?
Well, likely. As you mentioned, round 14, Sydney only just beaten Essendon by 1 point. And in that game, Essendon was leading by 3 goals or something with 3 minutes to go. And we talked about, I remember, how could Essendon lose from there? It's unlosable. Or from Sydney's perspective, they're sort of escape artists. I mentioned they're like Houdini. They know how to escape from the certain loss. So, Sydney is a very, very good team. But as you mentioned, Eddie, Essendon's pace, Essendon's speed will worry Sydney. And, Essendon will run around, quick ball movement before anyone can see. They might score a few goals.
Yes, well, in finals, as I mentioned before, finals are a different season. And there's always a couple of upsets in the first week of the finals. And I've already predicted that there'll be an upset in the Adelaide against Greater Western Sydney game. I'm predicting that Essendon will win this game by 1 point, and it will be a goal after the siren.
Who's going to kick it?
Jobe Watson.
Jobe Watson, yes. I'm inclined to go with the Essendon too. Remember at the beginning of the year, I said Essendon will be smoky, and I was right. And I think I have a feeling that finishing at number 7, that could be their winning formula. Since 2016, finishing at number 7 gives a great encouragement.
Well, it worked for the Western Bulldogs last year. They finished in 7th position. Essendon occupied 7th position at the end of the home and away season. So I think they could go all the way. So Essendon by 1 point. final match in the first week of the finals is Port Adelaide against West Coast. The game's being played in Adelaide, and we could see anything in this game.
Adelaide fans will be ecstatic. They have 2 games in one weekend. Both their teams are playing. Wow, you know. Port Adelaide, we've been talking about, they're good at beating the lesser side, and in this week they are meeting one of them. So as far as our theory goes, Port Adelaide Power has got very good chance.
Yes, well, they have been known as the flat track bullies for the entire season, and they've got this habit of defeating teams that are lower on the ladder. And we also have to look at recent history, where it was a strange season this year because Port Adelaide defeated West Coast in the game played in Perth, and West Coast defeated Port Adelaide in the game played in Adelaide. So it's very hard to discount that recent history, but what will happen to West Coast? Will they get to the final quarter, 5-minute mark of the final quarter, and be 4 goals up and then lose by a couple of points? Or will Port Adelaide capitulate this time around?
Well, as you mentioned, West Coast has got very good record recently at Adelaide Oval, so they feel fairly comfortable playing in Adelaide. That's for sure. And one thing their coach is worrying about is their final quarter fade out. As you mentioned, they may be 4 goals up in 10 minutes into final quarter. They could lose from there. Yeah, and that's the big worry. On the other hand, the round 23 games, the way they make it to the finals, that was a real team effort. They didn't rely on Josh Kennedy, to whom, normally they rely on so much. But in that game, Kennedy was restricted to just 1 goal. But other players kicked goals and, lifted the team to sneak into the final position in the top 8. So I think they're in a bit of roll. So there's got, and they are the factors West Coast may make it, but I would incline to support flat track bully.
Well, I tend to agree with you there, and I did talk about recent history, and I was unsure about who to choose for this game, and I had to look back at old history. So I looked back at the record books in 2007, and Port Adelaide and West Coast have played in the finals against each other once, and that was exactly the same game in 2007. It was Port Adelaide against West Coast, and it was played in Adelaide, and Port Adelaide won by 3 points. So I'm looking at that history to choose my winner, and I'm going for Port Adelaide in this game.
I'm inclined to go with the Port.
So we've got all of our games there. So it's going to be a very, 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 very exciting round of finals this week, and we'll see who the winners are. So you've been listening to The Protected Zone through iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, or on our website, theprotectedzone.com. Up next, we select our Song of the Week. At The Protected Zone, we love to choose a song which epitomises the round that we've just had. Now, last week we didn't actually have football, according to the media commentators, although obviously we had football all around Australia and around the world, just not at the AFL level. But we've decided that what we should do is commemorate the heroes that have retired this year, and I was trying to think of a good song that we should choose. What do you think, Lin Tang?
I think, you can think about the David Bowie heroes, You Can Be Heroes, or the Stranglers.
Ah, yes, the Stranglers. They wrote the song called No More Heroes. That's an excellent song. But I've noticed that there's quite a few versions out there. There's actually one by the Violent Femmes. There's a couple of other versions out there as well. But I think we should stick with the Stranglers version. What do you think, Lin Tang?
The original always is the best.
Yes, it is. So here's our tribute to all those retiring players. Good luck to all the teams playing in the finals, and we will see you next week.
Yes, fewer games happening, and a few teams will be eliminated, and this is really the beginning of pointy end.
Yes, it's the beginning of the end, or is it the end of the beginning? We'll find out next week, but we'll go out with our song of the week, No More Heroes by the Stranglers. See you later.
Yeah.